kids belong to everybody. You know, where our youth group isn't, where we have everybody is involved in children's ministry. It's the entire community that's involved in children's ministry, because children are our future. You know, if that's our ministry, we're going to do, because that's our mission, we're going to find a way to do that. Now, I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying that you're going to have to come up with imagery that speaks to that, pictures. The part that you guys if we can get a few of these things together, part of what we'll move toward is kind of encouraging you guys to go and try to paint pictures about what that would look like.
We see that every Sunday at church. After church, the kids are pretty much just cut loose, and they just go running around. And every adult watches the kids. Every adult watches the kids. If you're supposed to have that second donut, ask your daddy.
See, that's an image that comes out of your past, that comes out of what you are into your future. We did it right here. This right here, anybody who comes to church, I take them right there on that patio. And I said, our entire church is built around this reality, is that mom can be talking to her mom while she looks over there and see her kid on that playground. That 3 generations can stand right there and come to church together. This whole church was built around 3 generations being on that patio, right? We built a patio and figured out where to put all the rest of the buildings. The play yard's in the center of our patio. The patio and the play yard are the center of our church. That the teenagers down here that you hear them banging can come up and go get donuts. And they come in, the church comes out, everybody pours onto that patio. I said our church was a patio where we had to figure out where to put the buildings. Because that imagery of 3 generations being together is the imagery we kept putting before people. This is why we are. It's the log. This is our generation of the log on the beach. You know, you come out, so you should have 3 generations sitting there, right there. And even if you're not a 3-generation family, you get to be part of it. You got grandparents who adopt you. You know, my parents are not around, but my kids, if you ask my kids who their grandparents are, they'll tell you about a couple in the church named Aline and Sloan who've become adopted grandparents to my kids. And so on every Sunday morning, I get to walk out and watch my daughter talking to Beth, talking to Aline. And now my daughter's a 13-year-old who waves to kids in the play yard that she babysits. And that imagery is what pushes us forward. Okay, so economically viable, something about service and relationship. What else comes out of here? What other themes do you want to make sure you push forward?
God being the central focus.
Okay.
We have God as always part, and come to know us and God better. And that's the reason we're together as a church in the first place.
Okay, this is great. So let's tease this one out. How does that come out in the other stuff we've talked about God's role in all of this? How does that come up in other ways we've talked so far? Where did that show up?
In the unexpected.
The unexpected.
Possibilities of things new and different.
Yes, Lord.
See, I think the place where God shows up for you guys is in that place of this unexpected, of this thing that we don't expect, that God is the God who takes us into the unexpected. That I think is also tied a little bit into this piece of open to figure out what the church of the future looks like. That can either be a demographic conversation. You know, Rick Warren famously laid out the demographics of Orange County and said, here's going to be the fastest growing place in America, we'll put a church there. And that's okay, I'm not critical of it. But you guys didn't do that. What you guys have been talking about over and over again is the most life-giving things to you is where it seems like God showed up. You know, so how can we live our lives in such a way that we are always looking for that God can do the unexpected in our midst? And where a church is going to look for that and do that. It's one of those things that I heard several different times.
One of the, I don't know if I'm pushing here, but one of the images I'm thinking of, when you were saying something earlier, Susan, too, is the whole Exodus type. There's that liminal space where they've left Egypt, they're not to the promised land, they're in the middle, and they just want to, we came out here to, did you bring us out here to die? Did you, what was your, early on it made so much sense. Okay, we're tired of making bricks, we're not going to be Pharaoh's slaves, we're going to go on this great journey, it's going to be great. So it feels really great in leaving Egypt, but then until you're into that place, I mean, we don't know what the promised land looks like. There's this openness to what exactly will that be?
Openness or unexpectedness. Yeah, there is this piece, and there's something about the new and different, the standing in amaze. The that whole point about that keeps coming up of. Well, I mean, look at how many times. Open, new, different possibility, unexpected. Over here, the idea that we'll be passionate about giving God's grace. What's that?
Number 3,
Open to figure out which the church is. God is always part of us. Over here, that we're open to God's leading. We're not narrow-minded. That we're vibrant. I mean, there's this piece all the way through this that I want you to hold on to. That when people talk about God, what they usually tend to do is talk about we're not going to lose God. We're going to keep our orthodoxy. We're going to keep teaching our Bibles. And what you guys need to do is find a way to talk about the presence of God in your midst that is very core to your own personal relationship. I think your story, Susan, is a great one to keep mining. You know, your story of your own journey. I thought it was called to seminary. I was going to do this piece. God had something else for me. Mm-hmm. You know, for years we were at this other church. That God is the God of the unexpected. And that we want to be a church that explores and is open to the God of the unexpected, the God who takes us into places that we don't expect to go.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I keep working on this idea, but kind of like, it's not where God isn't doing something, it's where God is doing something. In other words, it's not that he shuts a door and leaves you there. He's leading you somewhere else. And I'm still working through it, but yeah.
Yeah. There is this place that I want you to, I mean, and partly, and again, we're not going to get to it today, we're just teasing them out, but part of what you want to pay attention to is very often when people say, I want to come to know God better, and God is always a part of us, what it often is that's a default in churches. So what are your wishes for the church? I want us to be a Bible-believing church. I want to share the gospel. I want us to disciple. I've spent 5 hours with you guys, and I know that you talk about that with much more vibrancy. like you're talking about that with this whole thing started with I'm totally shocked and amazed. I want to put here. One of the themes is we want to be constantly amazed by God. We want to be shocked and amazed. We want to be constantly amazed by who God is in our midst and what He does. Like that's the church we are. That's what we want to do. We want to be.
Well, it's like your story of the Exodus. It was God leading them, and they had to trust for God's leading. And He led by night and by day. And He gave them what they needed when they needed it.
Yeah, it's great. Wonder, romance, same pieces.
See, Susan, too, you had the discernment to realize that, I mean, you were adamant about getting through and becoming ordained. Okay?
Well,
And
especially
which
one
you
that,
have to
yeah.
be, which you had to be, you know.
Oh,
Oops.
is it out?
Probably so.